Thanks for that, Isaiah. You know, there's that statistic where it's like taking your eyes off the road for 10 seconds moving at speed is equal to like 2 football fields length of travel. Crazy.
I had no idea, but I always get anxiety whenever I'm watching a movie or a show and the character takes their eyes off the road for way too long, but that's neither here nor there. Right now, we have Alan Adler joining us this morning. Alan, thanks for being here.
Morning. Nice to see you guys. You know, truck tech really needs to be about technology, and we couldn't do more than we are today. Great week this week out at the American Center for Mobility. We'll hear more about some of the other things later. But this was the first opportunity to really get a sense of what Ree Automotive, this is not a company that we've talked a lot about. Brian Strait has written about them a little bit over at Modern Shipper. But Ree has a technology basically for an electric vehicle, which puts all of the electronic components, again, not mechanical, but electronic components at each corner of the chassis. This is hard to understand when you're just looking at a flat chassis because, quite honestly, we've seen a lot of what they call skateboard chassis out there. They're flat and they have wheels at the sides. What Ree does, this is an Israeli startup that went public here via SPAC about a year ago. What they do is they put all of the componentry in those corners, meaning electric motors and everything that they need, including there are some hydraulic brakes, but much smaller than a typical internal combustion engine would use. The idea here is to basically get the efficiency from regenerative braking. And what happens is they're able to save up to 20% of the battery use or energy needs from a battery by using their technology. This didn't mean much until you put a top on the vehicle. And that's what they did this week. We have a video here, I think, which we're going to show that they worked with Morgan Olson, which is a bodybuilder, and also with EAVX. This is the group that is the R&D arm of JB Poindexter, which also owns Morgan Olson. And what they've created is a modern, this is a proof of concept vehicle, by the way. This is not in production, but they've created a modern look to the step van. And what you're seeing now is how this van, which actually has cornering at all 4 wheels, in other words, the wheels in the back also move. You can see them there as it goes through the slalom course, that basically the turning radius is like 24 degrees. It's something amazing you would not expect for sort of this brick that you typically would see going down the highway or on the surface streets. So cornering is amazing in here. This windshield that you're looking out of is about, I think of a city bus. And what it offers is the opportunity for, especially a driver of shorter stature, to see about 75% farther in front than they would otherwise. That made me very dizzy, by the way, doing that, what we just did with that circle. I didn't feel too good. But anyway, the thing about this is a technological marvel, honestly. It doesn't look like much except for the front. But the technology in here is just amazing in terms of things. These are things, quite honestly, that have been brought over from the passenger car side, in terms of what's called drive-by-wire, where everything is essentially electronically. Your steering, your braking, and even your acceleration is all electronic. You may feel the steering wheel, but you're not really feeling it. What you're feeling is the way it's been tuned electronically, because there's no mechanical parts for the steering or things like that. So this is taking the step van, which recently the North American Council for Freight Efficiency said all step vans, quite honestly, are electric step vans are at parity in cost with diesel vans now. So you could do every one of them electric for the same price as a diesel van. This technology is going to cost a little bit more, but the savings, especially sort of the day-to-day savings, are going to be enormous. So testing begins next year on this. It was quite interesting because I was a bit of a skeptic of Ree, simply because you didn't see anything, and now we've actually seen it, and we can drive what they're thinking about.
Alan, so when you talk about the power conservation and what it takes when you put that top on it, as you said, can you give us a little bit of perspective? Like, how much are we talking about a step van being able to run? What's their range on that on a typical charge versus what's the range with technology that Ree puts in? And I guess kind of how much power is allocated to what? I guess I don't really understand like the full specs of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if you think about what a step van is used for, typically they run about 125 miles a day, which would be well within a single charge. Okay, a single electric charge. So you wouldn't have to charge it during the day. It does what's called return to base at night. It goes back to its depot or back to wherever the vans go, and basically it's charged overnight. Now, among the technologies that Ree's looking at in the EAVX, which is the R&D unit of Poindexter, is doing is they're looking at, do we really need to charge this thing 100%? Because if we have the data that tells us how far it's going, what the weather's going to be tomorrow, and other things, we can figure that, well, maybe it only needs 68% charge tonight because that's going to take care of all of its needs tomorrow. So we're talking, really smart technology throughout the vehicle. As far as the charging, you don't really have any range anxiety with these vehicles because, like I said, they don't go very far and they start and stop a lot. And that's where you're getting so much extra value by having 4 motors instead of 2. You're getting double the regenerative braking, which basically puts that energy back into the battery. And so, and especially if you're being, hyper driving or being really careful, you could probably generate even more savings. So the idea is that, you're going to need fewer batteries and you're going to be able to measure out just how far you need to go on a daily basis. I mean, these are things that, quite honestly, are foreign concepts to many of the fleets out there. They're used to buying these vans, run them for 20 years, and then replace them. And they don't change in looks very much. I mean, what you're looking at in that video is probably the biggest change you've seen in a step van in decades. But the idea is that, like everything else, there is technology, a lot of it coming over, as I said, from passenger cars that can and is making sense for delivery vehicles. And so this is something they'll be testing these next year. They'll build about several hundred of them for testing. And then I think production is later on, like 2025.
Alan, last question for you. In that proof of concept video, looking out of the windshield, as you mentioned, my first thought went to accessibility and that this opens up now an opportunity for a wider range of different sized people to get into these types of vans, and maybe now opens up the wider range of folks who can be employed by companies who choose to invest in these types of vans. Do you think that that's something that we could be looking at too, is not only do we need to improve the materials and the equipment for just the sake of the equipment and the planet, but also for the people who are using it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, one of the things, there's so much I could cover, and I know we're somewhat short on time, but, when you're trying to, let's just talk about heating and cooling a van like this. In the cab, they're not going to have a traditional air conditioning and heating system. They're going to do all of it in what's called a microenvironment where they will just heat or cool the seat and the steering wheel and blow air on the back of the neck and of the driver, as well as under the thighs and things like that. So it's a kind of a microenvironment for heating and cooling. There was something sort of an early version of this was way back in the Chevrolet Volt hybrid electric vehicle back in the 2000s. This again, the technology moves forward. As far as getting in and out of the van, I'm glad you brought that up, Kayleigh, because typically these vans are 36 inches high, which means you need sort of 3 steps to get in. This one is 24 inches off the ground. Therefore, you only have 2 steps to get in off the ground. If you're getting in and out of a van like that 150 times a day, that's saving a ton of stress on your knees because you're obviously cutting 50% of the stress out. And then the van, because of the flat chassis floor, usually these vans have a step in the back. When you come into the back area where the cargo goes, you have a step up. This doesn't. It's flat all the way from the back of the van to the front where the cab is. So a lot of things that I think do make it more, I want to say car-like, but certainly more comfortable and usable for a driver. We're talking video mirrors instead of outside mirrors, which means on a rainy day, you've got a clear view of what's going on outside because you've got video running rather than having to look out a rainy window to a rainy mirror. You actually can see what's going on. So just technology just oozes out of this thing.
Alan, I'm excited about this one, and thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's, like you said, one of those areas that hasn't been innovated in so long. So thanks for sharing this one. We'll be sure to follow up with you a little bit later on next week. Right now, we're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back with more Freightwaves Now.